Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be calculating the sinking funds that I will be using for 2021 as well as the amounts that I will be putting into them. So this is just a brief overview of how much I spent in these sinking funds throughout the year of 2020. Now a couple of things I want to point out. One, these are not all of my sinking funds. These are just the ones that are variable, meaning I don't have any bills or fees associated with them, and they vary month to month. Sometimes I don't even spend any in that month. So I just wanted to get a good representation of the whole year to see how much I should be putting in for next year. So in the averages here, or these are the amounts that I spent per month. And as you can see, I don't have December yet, so this isn't really the full year. It's just 11 months, but I think that's a good enough representation of my average spending for the year. Or so if you are interested in doing this as well, you can do it for the whole year or for 6 or even 3 months. But I recommend having 3 months be the minimum, since 1 or 2 months may not be a good representation of what you spend. So I thought I would just go over them and then get to the averages for the year and then determine how much I'm going to be putting towards my budget next year. So as you can see, this is all typed out, and if you've been following me for a little bit, you know that I am definitely a paper and pen girl. I really like doing my budget in my notebook. Or a planner, I guess is a better word. However, when I calculate things out, I like to do it in Excel first, just because it does it for me automatically. I don't have to sit with a calculator and type all these numbers and then average it out. That kind of increases the chance of error or mistakes. So I do everything in Excel to get the numbers for me and then basically transfer it to my planner. So that's why this is typed and not written out like it normally is. So I figured I would just go through them one by one. So the first is beauty. So this is basically toiletries. So it includes makeup, shampoo, conditioner, soaps, perfume, feminine products, things like that. And I am relatively consistent. I pretty much buy something every month. There's a few months that I didn't, June and November, for example. But for the most part, I do spend money just again, because it's toiletries, you kind of need those. This is definitely more of a need than a want. And then if we just move over here, the average for the 11 months came to $16.56. And when I'm setting these goals for next year, I like to round up just in case. Because if I spend, let's say if I go a little over, I want to have that cushion in my sinking fund to cover that so I don't go over budget. So what I'm going to use for beauty for 2021 is actually going to be $20. I like to round up to the nearest $5. Up next is clothes. And this one I actually spent a little less than I normally do, or than I shouldn't say normally do, than I thought I would. I have around $200 as the time I'm filming this. I have around $200 in that sinking fund to spend. And it looks like I spent the majority of it towards the beginning of the year. You have $65 and then almost $80 spent, and then not really much the rest of the year. So that average came to $19.75. And because I kind of gained some weight during the pandemic, and I want to kind of refresh my wardrobe for clothes that are one kind of in style and a little bit more modern, and as well as that fit me really nicely. So instead of rounding this up to $20, I'm actually going to do $25 next year. And this year, I believe I gave myself around $20 a month. So this is going to be relatively close. And then same with beauty. I actually gave myself $15 a month this year, but I'm going to bump that up a little bit because as you can see, it barely covered it. Up next is Colton. So this is little items that I do for him, as well as all of his gifts. So I do have another gifts fund, as you can see, but for Colton, I use his gifts out of his own fund. So that's anniversary, his birthday, Christmas, Valentine's Day, things like that. And because of that, my spending with that is, at least the larger spending, is seasonal. So February was Valentine's Day. Our anniversary is in April, but we didn't celebrate it until May. And then obviously December is when I'm going to get his gifts. I haven't purchased it yet, so that's why this is blank as well. And then the other smaller items are just if I, let's say we're close to being over budget for our joint and he really wants something, I'll kind of buy him something, little things like that, because he does the same for me as well. And so that average came to $24.13. And I will be budgeting. It'll vary because right now I'm going to bump it up because Valentine's Day, our anniversary, and his birthday are all coming up. So for the next few months, it'll be a little bit more. But on average, or like later in the year, it's going to be around $30. So I did bump that up a little bit more. Up next is crafting. This is one that I spent a little bit more than I should have, especially in November. This was Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And this one is one where I'm actually not really going to stay true to what this value says. So on average, I spent around $70 a month, which is kind of a lot. And I know a lot of it was because, where was it? In September, Colton used to work at Michael's and he left in September. So we kind of took advantage of his discount before he left. So that's why this one is a little bit more. Obviously Black Friday, that's why this is a little bit more. I forgot what went on in this month, but if you kind of get rid of those outliers, it looks like to be around $30 or so. So I'm going to do $35 per month for crafting. And I think this is doable, even though this is basically, it actually pretty much is half of what my average was, but I'm going to try to rein it in next year, and hopefully spend a little less money. Oh, I don't think you saw that. It's $35. Up next is donations, and this one is pretty much set in stone. I don't really change it that much because there's 3 organizations that I donate to. I give $25 a year. It's school, the National Park Foundation, and I want to add World Wildlife Fund. So that's $75 a year. So that comes to around $680 a month, $680 a month. But because I like to round up to the nearest dollar, or at least when I add to my sinking funds, I don't like to give cents. I like to have it in whole dollars. So this year, instead of doing $7, I'm actually just going to do $8 just so I have a little left over. And if for some reason there's another charity or organization or cause that I want to donate to, I'll have a little bit left over to give me the freedom to do that. Up next is gifts. As I kind of briefly mentioned this before, this is self-explanatory, gifts for anyone but Colton, basically. And I don't really spend that much on it during the year. It's mainly around the holidays, which hasn't been factored in yet. So that's why this average of $3 is so low. And I'm not going to continue to save $3 for a month for next year because that's just not going to cover the holidays. So this I'm going to keep at what I normally do, which is $15. So this is one of the things that strictly going by the average may not be the best idea, just because one, you may not encompass the month that you spend the most of it in your average, which for my example, that is definitely true. And also just because maybe this year, or especially 2020, was a little bit different than it normally is. And you want to be prepared for those, the things that come up in the future. So I always recommend rounding up if you can afford it, and just don't strictly go off the numbers, use your common sense. And if your habits, kind of go off of that. Up next is medical, which is one of the ones that was definitely not normal this year. As you can see, it was relatively standard the first half of the month, and then the first half of the year, and then the second half of the year, it skyrocketed. So I basically, this month, which is why it was so expensive, I had a procedure done and then another procedure done. Well, it was September 30th, but I paid for it in October. So that's why the amounts are so high, which is why my average comes to around $180 a month, which one, I cannot afford. I can't afford to give almost $200 towards medical. And two, that is just not normal because, hopefully I won't have 2 procedures/surgeries done a year. So this is why I'm going to actually round this down. I did increase it from last year. Last year I was doing around $25 to $50 a month. This year I am going to do $100 a month, which again, it is a little bit more than I normally do. It's not as much as my average. And this is one of the examples where it may be best to look at the median that you spent rather than the average, since it doesn't take into account all those outliers. that you might have spent, for example, a surgery or something that could skew your results. And then last but not least is technology. And this is pretty much anything related to technology. So if I need a new charger, if I want to buy like a new gaming console or something, which is not really my thing, but that would have gone in here, something like computer or tech oriented. But mainly this is going towards saving up for a new phone. And I currently, as the time I'm filming this, I have like $750 in this sinking fund. So that is definitely enough to cover a phone and then some. So I'm going to significantly reduce the amount that I put in towards this sinking fund this year. So last year, I put in $50 a month so I can build it up to pay for the new phone. But this year, I'm actually going to cut it in half. And I'm not going to cut it in half quite towards $5 because that's just too little, because usually tech things are a little bit more on the expensive end, and I don't think $5 a month will cover it. So I reduced it basically in half. So I cut it to $25 a month. I think this will be enough to cover any of the other random things that come up throughout the year, in addition to the money that I already have saved up for the new phone. So all of the averages came to, on average, I spent around $323 per month on these sinking funds. And then what I'm planning to do for next year, these sinking funds, I'm planning to spend $258 per month. And I shouldn't say spend, this is more accurately, it's save this much per month towards these items. And again, these sinking funds are not all of my sinking funds. I have plenty more, but the ones that I didn't include, like for example, Amazon Prime, because that has a set amount that I pay per year, and I already know the exact amount that I'm going to pay that year. So the amount that I put per month doesn't change, because it can't. Because if I change it, then I'm either going to have too much or too little for that bill. And if it's a bill, it makes no sense to have extra in the account, just because I know I'm not going to spend it. So these are just my varying sinking funds that I wanted to calculate for the following year. So if you guys have any questions about how to calculate sinking funds, please let me know down in the comments down below. And I would also love to know what your variable sinking funds are similar to these, because although I did find that my sinking funds do cover the vast majority of my spending, there are some random things that aren't really covered. So I would love some new ideas on what to start to save up for. So please leave those in the comments down below. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a good day. Bye-bye.